heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, let's take a look at the latest headlines. Israel's military says Palestinian militants fired a barrage of 20 projectiles from Gaza, but no injuries or damages were in fact reported. A Palestinian group called Islamic Jihad claims responsibility for the attack. Russia says its air defense systems destroyed 36 drones that were launched by Ukraine. This after Russian forces attacked Ukraine's two largest cities, Kyiv and Kharkiv. Hurricane Beryl intensifies into a Category 4 storm and is expected to slam into the Caribbean today, endangering several island communities with flash floods and violent winds. And Mauritania re-elects President Mohamed Ghazouani as head of state. The West African nation's electoral commission says he took over 56% of the vote, defeating 6 opposition candidates. Our top focus tonight is from the Middle East. Situations in the region continue to remain tense after Iran threatened Israel with an obliterating war if the Jewish state invades Lebanon. Now, in a post on social media platform X, Iran's mission to the United Nations said that all options, including the involvement of Hezbollah, remain on the table. Now, Israel's foreign minister responded by saying, quote, "If Hezbollah does not cease its fire and withdraw from southern Lebanon, we will act against it with full force until security is restored and residents can return to their homes," end quote. Now, the war of words between Israel and Iran has remained fierce in recent days. This in turn has now forced the United States to step in and attempt to play peacemaker. U.S. intelligence warns that a large-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah is likely to break out in the next several weeks if Israel and Hamas fail to reach a ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is committed to his goal of completely defeating Hamas in Gaza.
We are committed to fighting until we achieve all our goals: the elimination of Hamas, the return of all our hostages, ensuring that Gaza does no longer poses a threat on Israel, and the safe return of residents in the south and the north to their homes. To anyone who doubts the achievement of those goals, I again say there is no substitute for victory.
Now, in response, Hezbollah says it will continue attacking Israel until a permanent ceasefire is achieved in Gaza. And just yesterday, Hezbollah launched a barrage of kamikaze drones, wounding at least 18 Israeli soldiers. Now, as the drumbeat for war rages, the United States, Germany, the Netherlands, and Canada are urging their citizens to leave Lebanon as soon as possible via commercial flights still operating in the country. In addition, at least 7 other nations have also issued orders for their citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. Diplomatic efforts to bring a ceasefire in Gaza seem to have hit a roadblock, and with the tensions rising between Israel and Hezbollah, the international community is staring at another major security crisis in the region. And in France, the far-right National Rally Party has secured a resounding victory in the first round of the country's snap parliamentary election. According to final results published by the Interior Ministry, the right-wing bloc clinched over 35% of the vote, while the left-wing coalition came second with almost 28%. President Emmanuel Macron's centrist Ensemble alliance slumped to the third position with just above 20%. Now, immediately after the release of the results, President Macron declared the need for a strong and democratic alliance to confront the right-wing coalition in the second round. Additionally, the French Prime Minister urged voters to refrain from giving the far right a single vote in the upcoming round of the legislative election, which is scheduled for July 7th.
Tonight's lesson is that the far right is on the doorstep of power. Never before in our democracy has the National Assembly risked being dominated by the far right, as it was tonight. And so, our objective is clear: to prevent the National Rally from having an absolute majority in the second round, from dominating the National Assembly, and therefore from governing the country with its disastrous project.
Meanwhile, hundreds of people gathered in the French capital to express their disappointment with the results. Demonstrators set off flares in Paris as they marched through the streets protesting the rise of the far-right party.
It worries me personally because we see that the National Rally are on top, and it scares me. We don't see a vote coming for social rights, we don't see economic progress, we don't see immigration. It will worsen rights for LGBT, for women, abortion, medically assisted procreation. All of this will be swept away because it's the far right. We mustn't forget that.
Now, since the European parliamentary election last month, concerns about a resurgence of the far right on the continent have been mounting. And this trend didn't just start in France, but has also played out in Germany, where the far right won a major share of the vote, surpassing Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats. If the far right wins the French parliamentary election, the country could face a significant financial and constitutional churn. The right-wing bloc has made extravagant spending pledges ranging from rolling back President Macron's pension reforms to cutting gas, fuel, and electricity taxes. Now, despite President Macron's resolve not to resign under any circumstances, the National Rally Party has expressed its intention to curtail his authority. Now, there's no doubt that the party will pursue this course of action if it secures an absolute majority. And as the second round of the election approaches, France appears to be deeply divided politically, and its unity seems to be in jeopardy. Now, it remains to be seen if President Macron will manage to hold on to his position and for how long. And here in the United States, it's been more than 72 hours since President Biden's disastrous debate against former President Donald Trump, and the fallout still continues. Reports say that the Democratic Party is now in panic mode and trying to recover from the president's performance. Meanwhile, post-debate polls show that more than 70% of voters believe President Biden should not run for a second term. However, the commander-in-chief says he intends to defeat Donald Trump and has no plan to drop out of the race. Our next report takes you inside the ensuing chaos.
U.S. President Joe Biden delivered a dismal performance during the first presidential debate of the 2024 election race. His stumbles and fumbles in front of Donald Trump made headlines not just in the United States but all over the world. And now, the 81-year-old's poor night is also haunting his presidential nomination. Reports say that members of the Democratic Party who once united behind President Biden are now scoring candidate resumes in search of a different nominee. Members of the Democratic National Committee say it will be the easiest if Biden takes himself out of the race.
The reaction of Democrats was at first shock, and that gave way to horror and then panic. And that's what we woke up with this morning, and the panic has continued. I don't know how long it will last, but I know that President Biden and his team have a lot of work to do.
However, pushing the president out will not be a walk in the park. With the Democratic National Convention less than 50 days away, challenging Biden and convincing his supporters to flip their support would be difficult for any opponent, as Biden currently boasts support of 99% of the delegates. The panic in the inner circles of the Democratic Party has also allowed Republicans to present their own predictions. Senator Ted Cruz says that former First Lady Michelle Obama is likely to replace Biden in August, just 3 months before the November election. Meanwhile, former presidential candidate Nikki Haley said that Republicans should keep their guard up as Biden will not be the Democratic nominee. And Republican Vivek Ramaswamy suggested that the Democratic Party is using Biden as a sacrificial lamb. This sentiment has also been echoed by voters of the United States. A post-debate poll indicates that nearly 3 in 4 voters don't think Biden should run for president, and 86% of them think he's too old to be the commander-in-chief.
I kind of personally felt bad seeing him up there, the way he presented himself. And I think President Biden maybe should not be in this position, and it's the condition, physical condition and mental condition that I saw, maybe the rest of the world has seen, aside from the American people. And I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him. For this gentleman should not be in that position. He should be home, being taken care of.
Honestly, when I saw President Biden's eyes, I was really curious, why his pupils were so dilated. That was very concerning to me. And I felt that there were some times where he slurred his words, that he was a little incoherent at times. And I think that former President Trump did a great job of responding and not reacting to the questions that were being asked and to President Biden's responses.
Adding to people's views of Biden, the president only functions well between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And outside this time range, he's prone to verbal miscues and fatigue. However, no amount of criticism and questions about his cognitive abilities have affected President Biden, who still feels he's capable of running for a second term.
I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know. I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
This comes as American media outlets reported that President Biden's family has urged him to stay in the race. And some members of his clan have privately expressed exasperation at how his staff prepared him for the debate.
And moving to the Caribbean, it's been over a week since the international peacekeeping mission led by Kenya began operations in Haiti. A 400-strong elite police unit from Kenya has been deployed to curb violence perpetrated by armed gangs in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. Over the weekend, hundreds of officers from the East African nation conducted foot patrols in several neighborhoods which had fallen to gangs. Local Haitians embraced the police presence as they demanded an end to mafia and gang rule.
We asked for the police forces to arrive because we know they can help us. We need peace. If the Kenyan police forces came, it's so we can return to the lives we had before. We beg that they've come here to work seriously in something important. We hope they'll allow for society to resume their usual activities.
Meanwhile, gang leader Jimmy Cherizier has rejected the deployment of the Kenyan troops. In fact, Cherizier has declared war on the international peacekeeping mission and called the Kenyan police forces the invaders of Haiti.
We are sons of Dessalines. We cannot accept any foreign troops who come to murder people in the country. We'll fight with our lives and defend our country and the integrity of our country. It's part of the barbecue reaction. I don't care if they are white or black. Since they are not Haitian and they are on Haitian soil, I consider them to be invaders. An invader will never do us any good. Let's remember what they've already done to us.
Now, in response to foot patrols by the peacekeeping troops, Cherizier and his gangs put on a show of force in the neighborhoods that they do in fact control. The armed men were seen brandishing assault rifles and marching down the streets of Port-au-Prince with their faces covered by masks. And leading the group from the front was Cherizier himself, who was seen shouting the war cry of his gang. A former police officer turned criminal, Cherizier then gave weapons training to his team, followed by a high-octane speech imploring his gang to prepare for a bloodbath. The streets of Port-au-Prince witnessed an eerie calm as Kenyan troops patrolled in armored vehicles after Cherizier's calls for war. Meanwhile, Haiti's President Gary Conille visited the United States over the weekend as Washington agreed to provide more funds to support the international peacekeeping mission led by Kenya. As gangs reject the foreign troop presence and all negotiations between Cherizier and the government fail, the situation in Haiti remains a potential powder keg. And finally, from Argentina, 5-year-old Luan Danilo Peña disappeared after attending a family lunch. The matter became so big that President Javier Milei had to step in and oversee the search and rescue efforts. A breakthrough in the investigation came when the child's aunt confessed to the police that a family friend was behind the alleged kidnapping, igniting riots in Peña's hometown. Our final report explores the curious case of the missing boy.
When it comes to children, the smallest things often bring them the greatest joy. They don't need expensive gifts. Even something as simple as a piece of candy can light up their world. And Argentina's 5-year-old Luan Danilo Peña also embodied this innocent joy. His heart soared with excitement when he learned that he would be visiting his grandmother in the countryside for the first time, in the rural town of Corrientes province. This joyful occasion, however, would soon plunge into unimaginable sorrow. Peña set off to pick oranges with his cousins and uncle. But he never reached the orchard, nor did he return home. As worry turned into panic, his family reported him missing. What began as a local police search rapidly escalated to a federal investigation into a suspected case of child trafficking. The shadow of suspicion fell upon 5 of his grandmother's guests, who were arrested for allegedly abducting Luan for human trafficking. A massive search and rescue mission began, starting at the orchard. Authorities found a peeled orange and Luan's tiny shoe. Despite deploying over 50 police dogs, the search yielded nothing. Days slipped by with no trace of Peña, and even the President of Argentina, Javier Milei, had to get involved. Under enormous pressure, Milei instructed his security minister to intensify the search. A reward of approximately $5,000 was offered for any information leading to Peña. Yet despite the tireless efforts of hundreds of officials, no answers emerged. The case took a harrowing turn when the police arrested a friend of Peña's grandmother, a retired Navy captain. This happened after the police dogs found Peña's scent in his truck and car. This led investigators to believe that Peña never went to collect oranges. Instead, he was snatched in a car. The devastating breakthrough came with a confession from Peña's aunt. She revealed that the child was accidentally run over by the detained former Navy officer and a former municipal employee. She further admitted she did not know what happened to his body. The police now believe it was buried, and a new search mission will begin to recover Peña's remains. The community's anxiety and grief swelled. Hundreds of people, including Peña's family members, marched in protest in the province of Corrientes.
I don't trust the police in Corrientes or any in town, here or anywhere else. They did their job poorly. They had to close the town once and for all since the disappearance became known, and they didn't close anything.
Demonstrators even threw rocks at the hotel where Peña's aunt was staying. They claimed that she too was involved in the child's disappearance. The mob grew so violent that the police had to fire rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse the crowd. In the blink of an eye, a child's pure joy was transformed into an unspeakable tragedy. Peña's disappearance has left a void that no amount of effort can fill. A precious life abruptly and cruelly cut short, serving as a reminder of how fragile life is.
That's our show for today. We thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden. How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on First Post America.